Mario Kart is one of Nintendo's biggest franchises in the world, and today they announced that one of their games is officially getting shut down forever. And no, this is not just the game is done getting updates. Nintendo says there is no offline version planned, which means once the servers go down, this Mario Kart game disappears permanently. Guys, I wish I were kidding, but later this year, Mario Kart Tour is going completely offline, hitting the Shadow Realm alongside a growing list of discarded, forgotten, and deleted Nintendo games. But the part that makes this so much worse is that Nintendo already showed us that they know how to preserve one of their mobile games, because Animal Crossing Pocket Camp got a paid offline version, but Mario Kart Tour apparently not. So today we need to talk about why Nintendo is killing a game in one of their biggest franchises, why players who spent money on in-game currency and gold passes are about to lose access to not just everything they paid for, but the very game itself, and why this is exactly what people have been warning about with live service games for years through things like the Stop Killing Games initiative. And before you comment that this is just a mobile game and no one plays it and no one cares, this game makes hundreds of thousands of dollars every single month and has gotten hundreds of millions of downloads around the world. So if you think this is just a small little mobile game no one cares about, the numbers prove otherwise, and we're gonna dive into that later in this video. But first, let's just jump right in and cover exactly what Nintendo announced today, what is happening, what is being shut down, and when. This is the end of service notification that went live today, a measly 3 sentences for a game that has made them millions and millions of dollars. Service for the Mario Kart Tour game for smart devices will come to an end as of 11 p.m. Pacific time on September 29. We sincerely thank the many players who have loved and supported the game since service began so long ago. They don't even know when the game came out. They don't even care to look it up. They're just like, yeah, it came out a while ago, but hey, thanks for the money, or I mean, thanks for playing. And then that's it. They just say, yeah, thanks for playing Mario Kart Tour. See the below articles for information on how rubies and Mario Kart Tour gold passes are handled starting July 7th. That is yesterday. Okay. And that's it. They basically said, hey, you can't buy rubies, which are the in-game premium currency. If you've played any mobile game, you know what rubies are. It's gems, it's diamonds, it's gold, whatever coins. You can't buy them anymore. Okay. And then as far as the gold pass goes, apparently they stopped all renewals and subscriptions, and then they're giving everyone the gold pass for free, I guess, starting on August 4th. Okay, so you'll get 2 months of this subscription, I guess, or it used to be a subscription for the game, the premium pass, I suppose, and then that's it. The game gets taken offline forever, and any amount of money that you've ever spent on the game is gone. You get nothing. You don't get to play the game anymore. You don't get any of the benefits you paid for. That's just it. The game is deleted permanently forever. GG. Thanks for playing. Thanks for your money. And man, I just gotta say, Nintendo has been on a tear lately over the last couple of years, shutting down these mobile games, and it really makes me wonder, like, if they do release any mobile games in the future, why on earth would anyone ever give them any money for in-game transactions when they know that this is the inevitable fate, right? They've done this time and time again, and we'll talk about a long list of games that they've done this to later in the video. This is just the newest one, but like the track record here is just, it's crazy. Real quick, sorry to interrupt, this is not an ad, but I need to thank you guys for all the support on my last video. You guys got that video hyped to like number 35 in the entire United States, which is absolutely insane. So to everybody who liked that video, used the hype feature, like, I can't stress enough how much I appreciate it and how much it helps smaller channels like mine. And at this rate, I'm not going to be able to continue calling myself a small channel because of supportive viewers like you guys. And like I said earlier, I think the weirdest part about this is that they totally could do an offline version of this. Now, I know that Mario Kart is multiplayer, right? So like the idea is you play with friends, but like, let's not pretend like that's impossible to implement over a Wi-Fi connection. I mean, you could definitely do that, right? I mean, like, what are we talking about? You absolutely could do that. And also the courses here could just be played against NPCs. Like there is a path forward with which Nintendo could make this game playable offline. And, you know, if you spend money on the game in the past, or maybe you pay money to download it in the future, you get, you know, special skins or something like that. Like there's a lot more that they could be doing here to honor the game and the people that gave them money for it. But instead of being bothered, they're just going to take the lazy route and say, hey, yeah, we don't feel like figuring any of that shit out, bro. So just, yeah, we're just going to delete it. You know, it's just too much work. We know you've spent hundreds of millions of dollars collectively on the game, but like, look, you got to understand, like, we're going to have to like hire like 15 people to like figure out how to make it offline, and like it's gonna take a couple months, and just we're not gonna, you know, I know we're Nintendo, we've got hundreds of millions of dollars in the bank and we're making all this money off the Switch 2. It's just forget it. Okay, we're not going to be bothered. We can't be bothered. Just delete it. And the example that I used earlier is Animal Crossing Pocket Camp. Now this was re-released, I guess, as Pocket Camp Complete, and you can still download and play this game in its complete version offline for $20. Okay, now when they first announced that this game was going complete and offline, I believe they had a promotion period where the game was actually $10. So if you were a big fan of the game, you got it for 50% off, and you can continue to play it on your phone, your tablet, whatever the case might be. Now these days, if you want to play it on your phone, it's $20, but at least you can still play the game. All right, it still exists. It is still on the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store today. In fact, it is number 8 in family today. So this game is still something that people enjoy and play to this day, even with all the updates that Animal Crossing New Horizon got when it came to the Switch 2. So again, the idea that these Nintendo mobile games are like just stupid little pointless things that nobody plays, it's like, look, I know you and I don't play Nintendo mobile games. Okay, I tried Unite back in the day. I guess that's not technically Nintendo. Okay, but you get my point. I think there's a Fire Emblem Nintendo game that's pretty popular. I don't know if that's still around, but like people recognize these IPs on the App Store and they download them and they try them. And this is especially popular in other countries too, where they look at the price of the Switch 2 and they're like, holy, I can't afford it. This is too expensive. But hey, I can play Animal Crossing for $20 on my phone and get like an adjacent experience, even though it's obviously not the same. The same thing is true for Mario Kart Tour, except unlike Animal Crossing, they're not going to go through the effort of making this an offline version, which is bizarre to me because Mario Kart, again, is one of the biggest franchises that Nintendo has. I mean, they launched the Switch 2 with Mario Kart World. Like, this is a franchise that they put their weight behind to sell the literal next generation of the Switch, right? So Mario Kart is not like, it's not like this is, oh, well, it's just a spin-off, nobody cares about it. Like, no, Mario Kart as a franchise is the best-selling franchise on the Switch and Switch 2. So like, people definitely care about Mario Kart, and even if you don't play Mario Kart Tour, or you tried it back in the day and you don't play it now, people do still care about this. And let's take a look over on the game business. This was actually reported by Christopher Dring back in October of 2025. Nintendo has generated nearly 2.2 billion from mobile games so far, and in this article they do reference Mario Kart Tour. As we can see right here, they say when it comes to existing titles like Super Mario Run, which has 384 million downloads, or Mario Kart Tour, which has 290 million, Nintendo utilizes these titles to help promote relevant new releases. A series of challenges and in-game cosmetic items were added to Super Mario Run to promote the launch of Donkey Kong Bonanza on Switch 2 in July, and Mario Kart Tour received new costumes and carts to mark the launch of Mario Kart World on Switch 2 in June. That was last year, folks. Last year, they were providing updates that were relevant to the Switch 2 generation to promote the Switch 2, and now that the Switch 2 has sold a ton in, well, mainly Japan, but also around the world, they're like, okay, we're done playing with you now. It's literally like the Toy Story meme. They're like, okay, we're done we've milked everything we possibly can out of Mario Kart Tour. We've gotten the most amount of money out of this game that we can. Thanks for playing, but go ahead and buy a Switch 2 and play Mario Kart World now, because we are not going to continue updating Mario Kart Tour. And not only that, we're just deleting it. Goodbye forever. That's it. And look, let me just be clear here. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like Mario Kart World was a good Mario Kart game. It was controversial. It's a mobile game. It has microtransactions, and some of you might not have even known that this thing existed, but you can't look at a game that has 290 million downloads and say that this is nothing. Okay, this is a big deal. Some of the most popular and profitable mobile games in the world would kill to have 290 million downloads. But my point is, just because it was a controversial mobile version of Mario Kart doesn't justify, like, okay, thanks for the hundreds of millions of downloads and all the money you guys spent on the game, we're just pressing the delete button. Now that we've gotten the maximum ROI out of the game, we've utilized it and milked its community for marketing purposes, and now we just delete it? I mean, that kind of sucks for the people that actually liked the game, does it not? Like, this is one of those situations where it's like, oh, no one cares about Mario Kart Tour, and then it's like, okay, well, when it happens to a game you care about, all of a sudden it's gonna matter quite a bit, right? So like, let's use a little bit of logic here and get ahead of that narrative that this is something no one cares about, because one day it'll happen to a game you care about, and how are you gonna feel when everyone just says, hey, no one cares about that game? It's like there are literally hundreds of millions of people who played this. In fact, the game business goes on to reveal even more staggering numbers here. Mario Kart Tour, at least as of October of 2025, was Nintendo's second biggest mobile game by revenue, with a total lifetime revenue of $365 million. $365 million was spent on this game since September of 2019 across 290 million downloads, and that's it. They're just hitting the delete button. Thanks for the $365 million. We're gonna take that and just bail. Okay, the game you spent that on is gone, buddy. It ain't coming back. It's gone forever. It's also kind of crazy. Fire Emblem Heroes has grossed $1.2 billion. What? Listen, boys, I mean, on one hand, it's like I would probably stop spending money on this game immediately because of the track record of Nintendo deleting these mobile games. You're just not going to get anything for it, right? But then on top of that, it's like, well, I mean, it makes so much money that this, if anything, this is going to be the one game that they don't delete because they are just milking these 19 million downloads for every penny that they have. So of course they're going to keep it online. And look, I am very familiar with mobile games. These games make a lot of money. Okay, so I'm not even judging you if you've spent money on these games, but like, damn, bro, with Nintendo's track record at this point, I don't think I would be spending here, frankly. That's just me. Now, if we jump over to Sensor Tower ourselves, we can get some up-to-date information about Mario Kart Tour that isn't outdated from October of 2025 when the game business released that article, and we do get some loose information here. Okay, a lot of this is actually locked behind a paywall, and Sensor Tower is very, very expensive. I've reached out to their team over the years. Very expensive to get a subscription to this data. Okay, so I can't afford it, frankly. I just can't do it. All right, but what we do know is that Mario Kart Tour on the Apple App Store had 300,000 downloads last month. We're talking about June of 2026. Maybe this data is a little outdated. Maybe this is May of 2026, but even still 300,000 downloads, and that's just on iOS. If we take a look at the Google Play Store, that's 400,000 downloads. So 700,000 downloads last month alone. I don't think we can look at this game and say this is just a dead game no one cares about, because almost 750,000 people downloaded this game last month. It was ranked 25th in racing games by Sensor Tower on the Apple App Store and 71st in action games on the Google Play Store. And then of course we get some loose revenue estimates as well. $300,000 in revenue last month on the Apple App Store and $200,000 in revenue last month on the Google Play Store. So $500,000. They got 500,000 paying players dollars last month, and then boom, the game's getting deleted, right? Like, can you imagine how awful that feels to these people that downloaded it last month, spent all this money, and now they find out that the game is gone, right? And we can also cross-reference that data with another platform called App Magic, and this lists Mario Kart Tour as a game that had over $500,000 in revenue in the last 30 days across both platforms combined, and over 500,000 downloads between both platforms combined last month as well. So from multiple different sources, we are seeing the exact same data. So I do have reason to believe that this is actually accurate. And if this sounds familiar, by the way, it should, because as I mentioned earlier, Nintendo has a bit of a track record for deleting old games that mostly are mobile, but they just don't have any use for anymore. This was written back in 2018. Nintendo shut down debut mobile app Miitomo, which arrived on digital shelves back in March of 2016, and although the app was more of a kooky social experience than a bona fide game, it marked Nintendo's proper debut on the mobile scene. I guess the writing was on the wall, or at least it should have been. Their debut mobile app got shut down 2 years later. We should have seen this coming, folks. But then there was Dr. Mario World in 2021. It was announced that it would be getting end of service. The game is shut down forever. This was, I guess, technically the first game that was shut down by Nintendo on mobile devices, and this was once again shut down after 2 years. In 2022, it was reported that Dragalia Lost will end service on November 30th. So this again was about 4 years ago at this point, and this isn't exactly a Nintendo franchise, but Nintendo is obviously involved here, and once again then another game that they just pressed the delete button on, and then of course another game where I also covered this getting shut down. Pokemon Unite was announced that it would be getting shut down at the end of 2025, November 30th, in specifically Belgium and the Netherlands. Okay, I made an entire video about that on the channel. You can check it out. Now again, this only affects Belgium and the Netherlands, and if this affects you, you would already know because it would already be gone. All right, so if you still have the game, don't worry, you are still safe. But even something like this, I mean, it's Pokemon Unite, it's still getting updates, it's still a popular game. They just pressed the delete button in those two countries specifically. So again, this tale seems as old as time for Nintendo mobile games, where they just have this track record of just deleting them. They release them, they make a bunch of money, and then once they don't care about it anymore, they just throw in the garbage, and then that's it. Now look, there's also the argument that like, okay, if these games were still making a reasonable amount of money, then they would keep them alive, I guess. And I suppose that maybe $500,000 a month is nothing to Nintendo, so they don't care about that. They're willing to just throw it away. I can't imagine that this game costs more than $500,000 a month to continue running, right? I mean, like maybe it does. Maybe I'm totally ignorant to that. I have no idea, but like it seems like if it's making $500,000 a month, then it's probably still net profit. So I don't know why you would shut it down while it's still profitable. But again, maybe the margins are just so small that it's like, okay, it's not even worth dealing with, right? It's not, the profit there is not worth dealing with. Maybe that's it, right? So again, you could also make the argument that like, yeah, they're not shutting down super successful games. They're shutting down games that are like mildly successful, or they used to be successful, but nobody cares anymore. So now they're shutting them down. And it's like, okay, fine, fair enough. But like, again, this enters back into the stop killing games movement, where it's like, these are still franchises people care about. These aren't like throwaway indie garbage or AI slop trash. Like this is a Mario Kart game, for Christ's sakes. What if in 10 years, 20 years, people want to go back and be like, oh man, you remember Mario Kart Tour? Like that gimmicky little stupid Mario Kart game with mobile controls that nobody really cared about by the time it was shut down. Like you won't get to play that ever again. Like it's gone permanently, right? And so like there's no preservation here, which is just one aspect of the frustration, not even to account for the fact that like people spend money here and now that's just gone. And don't get me wrong, this is far from a Nintendo exclusive problem. This is a problem that faces all live service games fundamentally, right? I mean, that's one of the reasons why people hate live service games so much. It's because they're constantly updated and they're on that treadmill, and then once it stops printing money, then there's just no incentive to keep it online. But because it was always online, that version of the game just disappears, right? If you want to play a specific season of Fortnite, to my knowledge, there's no way to go back and just, oh, I just want to play the first season 7, right? Chapter 7, whatever. It doesn't exist. If you want to play The Crew, it's gone. If you want to go play a specific season of, I don't know, Call of Duty Warzone, it's gone, right? That's the fundamental problem with live service. So I'm not going to sit here and pretend like, oh, this is only Nintendo's fault. This is only something they're doing. Of course it's not. Of course, this is part of the broader picture and discussion that the gaming industry has been having over the last couple of years of like, not only does live service suck for a bunch of reasons that I'm not even going to get into right now, but then on top of that, if you overcome all of that, right, and you actually find the game to be fun and enjoyable, well, eventually when the game dies and stops making money, then they shut it down and it's gone forever, right? Like, I'm curious to know, and maybe I'm genuinely asking, maybe I actually don't know. Okay, you guys can let me know in the comments, what's going to happen with Genshin Impact when it stops printing money, right? Like, are they gonna put it on a disc and you're going to be able to play it whenever? Are they going to release an offline version of the game, or like what's going to happen there? Because I know that there are people that are super invested in the story, and in many years from now, they're gonna want to go back and play the game, and it might be offline, right? And like, I know that sounds hard to imagine because the game has been so wildly successful for so many years now, but like, we're talking about Mario Kart. Let's not pretend like Mario Kart isn't a super successful franchise as well. So if it can happen here, it can happen to any mobile game franchise, live service, whatever. And it's not even that it can happen, it's just when will it happen? That's really the question that we have to ask. I mean, even games like New World, right? New World was announced that it's being shut down, and so Amazon released it as a big MMO. It was very popular for a short amount of time, then it fell off, and there's many reasons for that, but now it's just going to get shut down and then it's just gone forever, right? Now we don't have an update on that, and we don't know what is going to come of that, but this is fundamentally the problem with live service beyond all of the negatives, you know, the monetization strategy, the gacha mechanics, the grinding nature, the daily quests, things that a lot of people don't like. Some people like them, right? And I think they work in some games, but beyond all of that, there's the game preservation aspect underneath, and it's like, man, it really sucks that like, okay, maybe you don't care about Mario Kart World, but certainly there is a live service game that you probably did play and somewhat enjoy at some point, and you will never get to play it ever again. And I think the reason that this hits particularly hard for Mario Kart World is that it is Nintendo, right? And Nintendo is held to a different standard because it is one of the oldest, if not the oldest company in video game history right now. Nintendo is built on legacy. It protects its IP aggressively. It utilizes nostalgia aggressively. It remasters and re-releases games from its history all the time to re-monetize on the same stuff. I mean, we just saw Star Fox come out, right? But with Mario Kart Tour, that doesn't apply. All of that goes away. They don't care about this game. It's gone forever, right? And again, I'm not going to sit here and say like this was the best Mario Kart game and now it's going to delete it, but it's just weird for it to be Nintendo, right? It is weird. It is a double standard, right? I mean, other game companies, frankly, it sucks when they do it too, but like it feels different for Nintendo because of their own identity, the identity that they made, that they established, that they claim to stand by. And with at least this part of its history, they are saying, hey, this is not worth preserving, no matter how much you spent on it and no matter how much you might have enjoyed the game. They don't care enough about it, and so they're just gonna have a totally different stance on Mario Kart Tour compared to other games of other franchises, right? But the other thing that feels really bad about this, specifically being a Nintendo game and a Mario Kart game, is that this goes entirely against what Nintendo's president said to his shareholders in a Q&A session just a couple of months ago. An investor asked Shuntaro Furukawa directly, Nintendo Switch 2 has a higher price point than past platforms like the family computer system Famicom. I am concerned that this might reduce opportunities for young children to engage with it. How will you address this issue? And Furukawa, the president of Nintendo, said this specifically: we believe the pricing of the Switch 2 is appropriate for the gaming experience it offers, and what is most important is to provide entertaining experiences that demonstrate the value to consumers. He goes on to say, it is true that Switch 2 has a higher price point than our past gaming systems. Here's the important part: we are creating various opportunities outside of our gaming systems for young children to engage with Nintendo characters and game worlds, with one of the ultimate goals being that they will eventually play on our gaming systems. And to me, shutting down Mario Kart Tour feels counterintuitive to what Furukawa literally told his shareholders a few months ago. Isn't it the case that giving children a free-to-play Mario Kart game such as Mario Kart Tour, isn't that like the best example of an opportunity outside of their gaming systems for young children to engage with Nintendo characters and game worlds, right? Like, I mean, this is literally a Mario Kart game that people can play, young kids can play. They can be introduced to Mario Kart and Mario and Luigi and Peach and Yoshi and Bowser and all these characters. They can be introduced to those worlds for $0 on a device that they literally have already, or their parents have, or whatever. And yet, instead of continuing down that path with keeping Tour online and maybe expanding it or releasing more games like it with different franchises, they're just taking it offline and deleting it permanently, right? So, okay, if you're not willing to provide those free-to-play experiences for those young children to introduce them to Mario Kart, and like, look, again, Tour's not the best Mario Kart game in the world, but if kids play for free and they really like it, and then Christmas comes around and the parents will say, okay, well, what is little Timmy like? Oh, well, he keeps playing that Mario Kart game on your phone. Why don't we get him a Switch 2 and you get a Mario Kart World, right? Like, the pipeline there is like literally drawn out. It's plain and simple, point A to point B. Like, this would be top of the line funnel there when it comes to marketing. And this is not even speculation, because as I said earlier in the video, we already know that Nintendo used these mobile games for marketing purposes to market Mario Kart World and Donkey Kong Bonanza in the case of Mario Run. So I'm just not understanding how you've already got this funnel in place to get children into these games and to enjoy your franchises for $0 on mobile devices that they already own or their family owns. And then you tell your shareholders, like, yeah, don't worry, we're creating various opportunities outside of gaming systems for children to engage with these characters in game worlds. And then you just simultaneously dismantle that, right? Like, I don't understand the logic there. And it's not because it's not making money. Clearly it's making money. So I'm just not seeing, like, what better opportunity than free games is there to introduce kids to Mario games, right? Like, what are we talking about? Like, sure, they can see the Mario movie if they want, but even that costs money, whereas Mario Kart might not. So you tell your investors one thing, and then you turn around and do literally, like quite literally, the opposite thing. You remove the most free and accessible way for young children to play a Mario Kart game right now. It's very weird to me. It's very weird to me. So maybe there's some other opportunity that Nintendo is working on coming down the pipeline, or something that maybe we just don't know about. And maybe you could point to, like, you know, the original Switch and say, okay, well, maybe that's not a free to play game, but it's certainly a far better experience than the free to play game games, and it's much more affordable than the Switch 2. And so even, you know, for young kids, maybe, you know, you can't afford a Switch 2, or they're too young to really even like know the difference between a Switch or Switch 2, so you get them a Switch Lite and you get the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, and then boom, there you go, that's your entry, right? But then at the same time, Nintendo has increased the price of the older Switch over the last year, and then on top of that, just 2 days ago it was announced that Nintendo is ending production of the Switch in Europe in mid-February 2027. Now this is due to the new European regulations that require handhelds or mobile devices, electronics, whatever, contain a user replaceable battery, and so instead of going through all the work of redesigning an old console, they're just going to remove it from the European market and just get rid of it entirely. And here's what they said, quote, Nintendo Switch, Nintendo Switch Lite, and Nintendo Switch OLED model will all continue to be manufactured in 2026 and should be widely available in Europe all year, said Nintendo. From mid-February 2027, almost 10 years after Switch launched in March of 2017, Nintendo will no longer sell to retailers hardware in the Nintendo Switch family of systems, specifically Switch, Switch Lite, and Switch OLED. Sales of Switch hardware on the Nintendo Store will also end mid-February. Okay, so again, we've got, you know, on one hand, Furukawa and Nintendo corporate in general saying, okay, if the Switch 2 is too expensive, don't worry, we're still supporting the Switch 1, and they've kind of proven that with the releases over the last year with, you know, Metroid Prime 4 and Pokemon Legends ZA, and they had Mario Galaxy 1 and 2 bundle. Like, there have been prominent releases on the Switch 1. Tomodachi Life is another good example, right? So they have been supporting the Switch 1 somewhat, even within the first year of the Switch 2's life, and they're pointing people in that direction and saying, like, look, if you can't afford a Switch 2, go for the Switch 1. And then simultaneously they've raised the price of the Switch 1 and then discontinued it in Europe altogether, right? And then the free mobile games like Mario Kart Tour, well, that's getting deleted too. So it's like, well, hang on, like you are pointing customers in these more affordable options and then getting rid of them or making them more expensive. So it like, you say one thing on one day and then you do something completely different on the next day, and it just doesn't make any sense logically, right? Like it like, and I don't mean that it doesn't make sense for them to not produce the Switch. Obviously I know why they're not doing it, but if you know you're gonna have to do these things, or if they're coming down the pipeline, if the end of Mario Kart Tour is coming soon, then why even tell investors foolish things like, oh, well, we're making these things more accessible by raising the price of the old Switch and discontinuing it in Europe and by removing the free mobile games. But like, okay, I guess we've got the Mario movie and like, that's it. I don't know. It sure seems like they want you to get a Switch 2. They're gonna tell you that they're still offering affordable options. Meanwhile, they're slowly pulling that back. They're slowly getting rid of them, hoping that you won't notice, right? I don't know. The whole thing just feels weird to me. But I'm curious to know what you guys think about this. Let me know in the comment section below. Should games like Mario Kart Tour be preserved, or do you not care that they're just deleting this even though people spent money on this game, even as much as $500,000 last month? And while you're down there, you might think that you're subscribed to the channel because you've seen a bunch of my videos, but you're actually not. Double check down below.